Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to another late night video. Daddy, go watch a video! That's what my 2-year-old tells me when she wants me to leave the room so she can do shenanigans. I gave her something and she was like, Daddy, go watch a video. And I was like, suddenly I don't trust you with this. I think it was a banana or something. And she loves to take food items and cook with them. In fact, she made a lot of imaginary pizza today. Meanwhile, I made real pizza. And Bacon Gaming is gonna make some real restin' pepperonis out of the enemy. Bacon in the Cent Mark 1. An odd medium tank, sort of proto-MBT. In its turret design especially, experimental you could say. And yet even as a medium tank, it has decent mobility reminiscent of the Panther, and of course every Centurion that comes after it starts to lag behind as other tanks get more advanced. Armor protection that is, again, comparable to the Panther. Definitely not the same, especially with that big weak spot of the ball turret machine gun instead of your traditional coaxial arrangement next to the cannon. And I believe you have is it the 17-pounder gun in this variant? I'm not quite sure, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. Yeah, that kind of looks like a 17-pounder, doesn't it? Looks like it was yanked right off of a Sherman Firefly, and depressing the gun just in time, because anytime you're in third person and there's literally any object in front of your tank, the cannon barrel, well, it just gets a little bit excited, you might say, stimulated if you will, and it lifts toward the ceiling. Dropping down in time to drop a Tiger, disabling with the first shot and killing with the second. Although, you'll note he did have to rely on his armor. It looks like that poor, foolish Tiger tried to place a round directly in the middle of his upper frontal plate. At the angle Bacon is presenting, penetration is not likely. You're welcome. Moving on. Bacon is going to get a number of kills in this match, and he set himself up in a very familiar position. Now, luckily, his team has quite the advantage. The Centurion Mark 1 sitting at 5-7 for quite some time in the War Thunder regular tech tree for the British. The M18, as of the making of this replay, had not yet received its up tier to 5-7, but I think it'll fare just fine there. I've had great experiences with it, but I've been up tiering my M18 to 6.3, 6.7 and beyond for quite some time. It's that mobility, man. It's all about the mobility. In any event, Bacon, with an open field in front of him here, it's rare that the opposing team sends so few down that long straight road. And for the Germans, especially with access to tanks like the Panther and to a lesser extent the Tiger, but also their glass cannon tank destroyers like the Dicker Max around this battle rating, it's tempting to try and control those long zones of fire, not to mention if you happen to be in a 6.3 up tier. Casemates like the Ferdinand and even the Panzer 470 can provide quite a challenge. Another thing that's challenging is getting that good post-penetration damage that you always want in the Cent Mark 1 against a Panther's reasonably well angled, reasonably thick upper plate. But 2, 3, and 4 rounds in, the quick reload of this 17-pounder is enough to make up for the fact that the APDS still has trash post-penetration damage at this point in the game. Again, things change from patch to patch, and Descent Mark I has seen its fortunes rise and fall slightly with little effective buffs and nerfs, but overall it has remained a reliable platform. I think it did have a stabilizer at one point, but it does not have a stabilizer now, and that's just fine. You can see that even without a stab, the gun is not all that wobbly, especially if you play your cards right. Bacon, uncharacteristic to this channel, is a much more defensive-minded player. You can see that he locks down a field of fire. He moves with his teammates here so far in this battle. He finds a good position, he holds it until there's no more action, and then he finds another good position. A true bite and hold British maneuver in strategy, sir. And I'm proud to what's it called? Broadcast? Telecast his gameplay for you all. Missing what is normally an ammo rack in the Panther, but nonetheless taking down at least the gunner there in the turret crew of said German medium tank. Just one more shot will finish off the Teutonic terror, that he might wreak havoc no more the round, miraculously passing through the radio as well as the replacement gunner on the German medium tank. I shot what was it? It was a British Vickers, no, not Vickers, what's it called? The Crusader AA Mark II that has the dual 20mm cannons that everyone loves so much in an anti-tank role. I shot it in the back of the turret with AP CR 30 mils out of German MK103s on the Heinkel 219 from point blank range effectively. I almost crashed into the bugger. And a flat angle, so maximum penetration against the vertical surface of the rear of the turret, which I think is at least less than 40 mils. I should be seeing around 70 or 80 millimeters of pen against a surface like that effectively. And the reason I laugh is two crew members chuckling while sipping their tea and shooting down everything German in the sky in World War mode were only mildly perturbed to hear the sound of my APCR rounds being absorbed by the optics in the rear of the turret that sit between the rear armor of the turret on the AA Mark II and the turret crew. Praise the Lord and pass the toast. I think my plane just gave up the ghost. Welcome to the beautiful game of War Thunder, a historically accurate battle simulator. I jest. You can laugh or you can cry. And I suspect you'll end up doing both in this game. And this is just a Panther and Tiger destruction simulator. Bacon perfectly here, realizing the dream of every Cent Mark I captain, to use the naval term. Why are they not called captains aboard these here tanks? Of course, a tank nomenclature in America being drawn from the Navy. That's why the upper flat armor on top of a tank that the turret rests on, that the crew clambers into, at least the driver and the relief driver, if you're not climbing in through the turret, is called the deck. And what else? There's a bunch of other nautical terminology used in tanks. So why then, I ask you, is the tank commander not called the captain? Oh, captain, my captain. Load Sabot. Maybe it's the homemade pizza. By the way, I made a lot of pizza today. my daughter Brooklyn, my 2-year-old, definitely not to be confused with Zoe, the 1-year-old, who is a little monster right now. She's very 1, as I describe it. But Brooklyn is 2, and yesterday she was non-stop talking about making pizza. So she was making her pretend pizza with various opportune objects around the house, both food and non-food items, and never in a sanitary or contained fashion, although she did have a plan. She really looked like she knew what she was doing. Who's teaching my daughter to make pizza? Anyway, I decided to make some pizza of my own. It's one of my hobbies. I love making pizza. My crust is incredible and delicious. You're welcome. And that is wrapping it up for bacon. Getting a fantastic number of kills in the Cent Mark 1 with ease, as you do. Bite and hold, bite and hold. Show them what that prototype can do. Speaking of the T14, an abandoned project, it was the KPZ before the KPZ was cool. Or at least, let's say, MBT, of course, because we weren't cooperating with Germany on this project on account of certain hostilities that had broken out into open warfare. Instead, no, this is the what if we made a Sherman the way the Brits like them. It's almost like the love child between a Sherman and a Churchill, although there is a much more accurate representation of that might come to War Thunder one of these days. That's right, a Churchill with a Sherman turret. I think that could be lots of fun. But lo, the T14, a hybrid project between British and American tank design, built to fit in with British tank doctrine, armed with the 75, what would you call this? It's almost a howitzer, but it kicks just a little bit more, and it's perfect for where it sits in the game of War Thunder, with a low-speed single-plane stabilizer, just like other Sherman tanks, with a turret that sort of looks like a slightly flattened Sherman turret, with rather thick cast armor on, of all things, the sides and rear of the turret, a somewhat thinner front plate, I kid you not, that is still capable of bouncing shots at its battle rating, and a rather beefy mantlet setup, the likes of which you're used to seeing on Sherman tanks, with overlapping armor and all that jazz. Add to that actual side armor, you're welcome Britain, and a very well sloped frontal plate that's very capable of bouncing lower penetration or lower velocity projectiles than the T-34-57, which it can commonly face, or the ASU, which can pretty much punch through anything, as you know. And the front plate could have some trouble with the longer 75 that you find on the Panzer IV and everything else at that battle rating for Germany. And yet, because its side armor is strong, because it has that stabilizer, it has just a bit more armor than your average Sherman at its, 4.0, 4.3 battle rating, I think. Just a little bit of an advantage in terms of armor, just enough to classify it as a heavy tank. And the Americans have only profited from things like the penetration calculator and the low speed stabilizer available on many of their lower tier tanks. The T14, bundling all that together, plays like a Sherman, has a bit more armor. what's not to love? Or picture it as a Churchill, with more mobility in fore and rear. Never something to be taken for granted. All of that, though, is useless unless you can put T14 into a position to do well. The armor is really there to make the enemy take a moment to aim and to give you a chance to set yourself up in a defensive position. The stabilizer helps you on the offense, but mistakes are not easily forgiven in T14, especially again against vehicles like the T34s and Panzer IVs that it can face. This time T34 STZ fails to do the damage, and our guy introducing Quirties, who you may have seen before if you're a fan of the channel, and if you're not, then welcome. This is the guy that sends in all the replays. But Quirties, while I was introducing the T14, already up to 8 kills. My goodness, what an incredible match. And while you could have accomplished much of that in a Sherman, isn't it cooler to do it in one of the highest battle rating rank 2 premiums in the game? I think so. That's right, the T14 is a rank 2 premium. Not all that expensive in terms of GE to pick up, and definitely one of my most recommended rank 2 premiums in the game. It kind of hurts to pay for a rank 2 in this day and age where the battle ratings and ranks go far beyond the scope of what a rank 2 can efficiently research for you. But if you want to play the Silver Lions game, this is a tank that pays off well. It can be very effective in battle. It sometimes has good survivability, and it definitely has an ability to dish out the hurt. And again, I say it sometimes has good survivability. It is not a Churchill Mark III. It is not a Churchill Mark VII. It is not a Sherman Jumbo. It's sort of in between. And for those that have really gotten a feel for T14, you can tell I talk about it a lot. By the way, those fences indestructible to every projectile in the game at this current time. You can drive through them, but you cannot shoot through even the chain link portion of the fence. A bug that I have not verified if that's still the case. This is somewhat older of a replay, but it's been with this map for as long as I can remember, this being somewhat of a new map, but Quirties learning that hard lesson the hard way. He definitely would have picked up 1 or 2 more kills there, as you can clearly see, and yet such will not be the case. I can't tell you why that shot to what I presumed was the rear of that enemy T-34 turret was not only non-fatal but non-damaging whatsoever. But Quirties now standing at 9 kills where he could have reasonably expected 10 or more, is now facing down 2 T-34s with a dead driver and his side armor exposed, an angle he can't finagle. Anyway, that does it for Quirties in the T14, and that does it for today's video. Thank you to Bacon and Quirties who send in replays and who sent in those. You are welcome to do the same. There's a link in the description to my Discord, which is the best place to reach me, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.